Hi, Jeff Bluvman with Arm Dynamics, and I'm here today with my pal Shawn Lupka of Anti-Fragile Training, and we got a class coming up, but I wanted to kind of pick Shawn's brain. He has a really good training pedigree, and so we're going to talk about what Anti-Fragile Training is and all that stuff. So, Shawn, introduce yourself.
Shawn Lupka. I came here today. We're going to shoot some guns, Anti-Fragile Training. Jeff asked if we could do a little video, ask some questions about developing a training group, some of my training experiences, and what anti-fragile means, what it means to me, what it means to training.
And it's kind of cool that we're not going to talk too much about the class because it's a work in progress. I'm really excited to host Shawn, but basically, I've been shooting a long time. And I took my first formal firearms training class a decade ago, and I realized there was a lot I didn't know. And basically, Shawn and I were having, I think, coffee or something at my house, and about to go to some sort of training thing with I think, Craig or something. And we were just doing a little dry practice and messing around, and he had some pointers, some tips. He asked me, like, well, why do you do this, and why do you do that, and gave me some things to think about, and I was like, dude, we got to put a class together. I'll host you. And so here it is. So one of the purposes of this channel is to expose other good instructors and other methodologies and stuff that kind of meshes with what Arm Dynamics does. So tell us a little bit about anti-fragile training and what that entails. A little bit about your organization.
Okay, so anti-fragile, the term comes from a book written by Nassim Taleb. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. He's more famous for writing The Black Swan, not the movie The Black Swan, which is a good movie.
I haven't seen it.
But it's a book about rare occurrences that have large impacts. The idea of being anti-fragile is about what is the opposite of fragility. So if you ask somebody what the opposite of fragility is, a lot of times they will tell you it is being robust or being strong. But that is not actually the opposite of fragility. So something that's fragile breaks under stress. Something that's robust stays the same. The anti-fragile grows stronger through adversity. So it would be, a good natural example of that is your bone structure. How bones break and rebuild through calcium and get stronger. Or muscle growth if you're lifting weights. You hit your max rep until the muscles hit the limit of what they can do, and they fail, and then they get stronger through that. The whole idea behind not just what I do, but through what the people I associate with do, is putting our firearms, our self-defense training, our combatives work, our edge weapons work, under as much pressure, realistic pressure, as we can do safely, and to grow stronger through that process. If we're not challenged, we don't grow. Absolutely.
And quite easily, if you just think about one of the experiences that you may have had, where it's like, if you always get pat on the back and attaboy, you're a warrior, woo! At a certain point, you never remember that stuff. Unless, of course, you won a fight and it's like, okay, that's a landmark. Yeah. But think about now the time that an instructor came up to you and kind of got on your shit. You remember that. I remember I was reloading down here in a tactical response class in 2005, and they took a picture. One of the guys, one of the instructors, but I was like, I didn't do that, and he came over with the camera, and he's like, my head was down, my gun's out like that, and I'm like, well, that happened. I remember that. That is ingrained in my memory, Yeah. I think it was Rob Edwards was currently working for them. And it's those things, unless we're pressure testing, unless we're actually working these skills with, to use some of Craig's verbiage, a competitive, non-consensual person. What are we really doing?
Someone who's trying to win.
Someone who's trying to win.
So, one of the first force-on-force classes I had done, this was, years and years and years and years ago. I had just started, formal firearms training, and I saw this guy. I'll leave his name out of it. But I had seen some of his stuff online, and he was doing force-on-force training. And me and some of my friends, we pitched in together, and we brought him out to do this class for us. And I thought it was great. And in some levels it was great because it opened my eyes to the idea of people touching each other. All the firearms training I had had to that point.
There's a target. It's uninvolved.
There's a target. There's the most pressure you get is a timer, and a timer is pressure.
Yeah.
Or people watching, or an instructor, or whatever. But nobody actually physically touched one another.
Right.
You talked about if people touched you, or what you would do if people touched you. Maybe you role played it out a little or something, but there was no actual physical contact at any point. That kind of opened my eyes to it. But the instructor played the bad guy through the whole thing. And nowadays, that's kind of a red flag to me. That's not necessarily a go, no-go, but it's kind of a red flag to me when the role player for everybody is the same guy giving you the same responses to the things he just taught you. So he just taught you, this guy's going to throw a looping right, okay, and you're going to do this, and then he's going to do this, and then you're going to do that, and then
it becomes a ballet,
and that's how you win.
Some kind of rote.
So he is feeding you predictable things that you've just trained for and giving you an acted out response that he has told you is how people are going to respond. And I bought into it. I believed it. Me and my friends, we got together, the guys took the class with me. You know, we're dudes, you know, and we're like, this is cool. This is cool. Let's get together next weekend and fucking do this. You know, let's beat each other up, man. And, you know, I like an excuse to buy gear. I buy training knives and stuff, you know, and we get geared up and we get together. And I think we barbecued or something. Who knows? We're like in my wife's parents. They're, you know, like in the middle of nowhere. They're rednecks. They love it. You know, we're in the backyard fighting and shooting guns, and they're like on the porch watching us. It was great. But you know what happened was a bunch of dudes and my wife, a bunch of dudes plus my wife,
who's tough, by the way,
who is very tough, and you know, we, you know, start to go a little harder. Start to go a little off script. And it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
And it just doesn't work anymore. And when so-and-so, you know, decides instead of throwing this, he's gonna throw that,
right,
you get hit in the face, and it all falls apart.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of where, you know, it started. It started there. And it was a journey of many years. And I found other people that I trained with. Who would, you know, boost up your ego and tell you a lot of stuff that made you feel good, and would teach you, you know, some stuff, and you would do it, and you know, I believed the stuff would work. When I found myself in my first ECQC, Extreme Close Quarters Concepts, taught by Craig Douglas, South Narc, we were talking about earlier.
And there's an interview on the channel with him that's pretty good.
Is there only one? I thought there was more.
We're going to do another one.
We're going
to do a Skype interview.
Okay. First time I trained with Craig, you know, I didn't even, you know, the pressure was not something I had ever experienced before. It was unscripted. It was more pressure than I was used to. I was not allowed to quit. And it was a little terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, it was a little terrifying. And none of the stuff I had done previously worked, and people didn't respond the way that I had been told that they would respond.
Right. Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, through that failure, I started training harder, you know, and trying to find what would work. What would work when my buddies pushed me harder than I was comfortable with.
Yeah, which I also like because, I mean, I think it's very fitting. So this is a compliment for you.
Okay.
No, it's very fitting that your organization, what do I call it, organization, like your company, is anti-fragile training. Because, you know, when we experience a failure, you know, I can think of that failures that I've had in training, and it's like, you remember those, you have options. You do have options.
Yeah.
You can
make excuses.
Well, he didn't do the thing, or my stomach was bad, or
he
whatever.
was stronger than me.
He was stronger. Well, he wrestled in high school, or whatever.
Wrestled in high school.
You know,
yeah.
Dude, right? You know what I'm saying? But so you can make excuses.
He's from Brazil.
He's from Brazil, so naturally he's really good. Although I have a love affair with the Brazilian people. They are the most animated, funny people, like Sadeko and Daniel Gracie.
Brazilian steakhouses.
They're
phenomenal.
And
bring the meat.
They bring the meat.
On the sticks. They
Exactly. It's like, how can you go wrong? But so I'm gonna narrow it down to three things. You can make excuses, and then it's kind of like you kind of just skip around that failure. You can quit and say,
yes,
fuck this. You know what? I didn't sign up really to have my ego bruised.
Yeah.
I didn't. You know, so you quit. You stop. You stop doing what you're doing, which is a shame. Or you grow stronger and you say, well, you know what? If I had done all these things, you know, I had done the move, right? I had done the thing, and it didn't work.
The thing didn't work.
that can then be motivation and give us drive to then, well, I got to figure out now. We have to be able to seek the truth.
Well, and do you want to win? How bad do you want it? How bad do you really want to win? Or do you want to make, plenty of people make excuses. I was past making excuses. Now, the experience I just talked about was like my first ECQC, right? So, time passed. All right, I trained with Craig several more times. I had done Edge Weapons Overview. I had done his In Extremis Knife. I had done his Arm Movement and Structures. I host these classes. I bring them into Pittsburgh.
And Shawn is a world-class host.
I make sure there are targets there. Hosting isn't rocket science.
Dude.
I show up and there's a place for people to teach.
No, but you host people from all over the country. So
I do.
That's no easy task.
I do.
You just make it look easy.
I make it look easy. But I had done several courses with Craig. I had started training at an MMA gym. I had started, doing some training, doing stuff that I thought was going to work, that was bringing me closer to working. And I had a bit of an ego about it. I had some ego about it, and I thought that I was going to be pretty badass. I had an ECQC again. I had one that I was hosting in Pittsburgh, and you beat my ass. And Jeff beat my ass and beat me so bad. And so publicly, I'm the host. I'm the demo monkey for the class. It's, we're going to do such and such. Shawn, come here. Let me demo this. Everybody knows me there. All my friends are there. All my training partners are there. All the people I've been training with are there. And I completely panicked, gassed out, couldn't get out of it. Completely demoralizing defeat. That evening, I couldn't sleep right at night that night because I've been through this class before. I know it ain't, day 2 is not a cakewalk. You know what I mean? Like day 1's hard. Day 2 is not a cakewalk either. I knew what was coming, and I was terrified. And my option at the time was I was going to quit. I said, forget this. I can't do it. Get rid of my guns. I'm going to stop training. I'm not going to host anymore. I'll finish out the year, but I'm not going to host any more classes. I just can't do this anymore. I can't do it. And it took a little bit of time to get over it, but instead, we're talking about like embracing anti-fragility, getting stronger through adversity. Instead, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come back stronger. It's like, I tell Craig, it's like I'm in a prison cell and I got Jeff's picture up, doing push-ups. I wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, 2-3 hours early for work, and I'm like in my garage doing push-ups.
Not finger push-ups. Like, oh, it hurts.
It's like there's an 80s soundtrack playing, and I'm running, I'm shoving my hands in the rice buckets.
Little jazz horn, anybody?
That's what it's like.
Chesney, this is fun.
You're loving
Isn't it great that we have an audience?
It is.
There's one person in the room right now. Don't make it sound like there's a lot. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Thank you to the studio.
I'd like to thank the Academy.
Laugh track.
Laugh tracks.
But no, I started training harder. I found another gym to train at. Actually, Henzo Gracie Pittsburgh, Stout Training Pittsburgh, stouttrainpit.com online.
I'll put a little link.
Put a little thing down here. Warren Stout, who runs the academy, is a black belt under Henzo Gracie and a wrestler of some renown, and he runs the academy. He's a great teacher, and studying there has made me immensely better. Like not just my survivability rate or anything like that, but everything about everything I do has gotten better through training there. And I'm very lucky that Warren has come and done the coursework. He's done the coursework with Craig multiple times now.
Did he do ECQC?
He hasn't done an ECQC yet. Yet. He's done Edge Weapons Overview.
Right.
And he's done In Extremis Knife. My plan is to have him to bring him to an ECQC this year. He was out on the range with me shooting just the other day. So, we'll work towards that. I have an Arm Movement and Structures scheduled this year.
That's an outstanding class. It's a class taught by Craig that is a solo operator structure clearing class, and outstanding coursework. I'm always impressed with that guy. But
it's great coursework. I have that in Pittsburgh this year. But I'm very lucky to have Warren has done the coursework, and so he understands what it is that I'm doing. And he comes and he trains with the training group. He shows up and he's a great student. He's a great instructor and he's a great student. And he shows up and does the work.
Very good.
Okay, so I talked earlier about the first training session I had done with the guys after that first class we had done, and it kind of just continued from there. We kept getting together. The people who attended have changed dramatically. So the only people who still in the training group who were there in the beginning are me and my wife, honestly, and that's it. It's a core principle. I think that having a training group is always be recruiting new people. New people are the lifeblood of any organization. If it's not for the new people, we don't have a future. So you always have to be bringing new people in, because people get married, they have children, they find different jobs, they move away, they get different interests. Maybe they get challenged too hard and they stop coming. Maybe their ego isn't ready for it, or all sorts of things happen. All sorts of things happen completely unrelated to training in people's lives. So, if I want to continue to have training partners, I keep bringing new people in.
And I like that, and that was one of the things. I'm starting a Philly training group with, and after enough prodding from you and from South Narc, which I needed, because I don't do anything unless I'm pressured, apparently. And I was asking you, my initial thought was, okay, I'm going to make ECQC a prerequisite in order to join. And then I asked you, well, what was your feeling about that? And you said, no, don't.
Don't do it.
And it makes perfect sense what you said, and essentially along the lines of, well, first of all, they're not going to know if they want to take ECQC or be involved in that kind of thing unless they have a good, safe environment to even try it. And two, you're recruiting people into something that, like, I'm really excited because we're going to, of where we're going to be hosting it, which is going to be at Daniel Gracie's Hensel Gracie Philly studio, and I'm excited because one guy immediately said that he was interested. He'd actually been on the fence about maybe joining that place. So get him in, maybe and it's like the first time that you're on the ground and your fucking arms are pinned, and you're like, but my gun. But I have that.
I was just going to shoot him.
I was about to shoot him, but
I was just going to shoot him. That's been my plan the whole time.
But that's what the internet said, right? I just got my gun. Shouldn't be in a fight. It should be in a safe environment where the person's not trying to hurt you. I really think that Shawn has done there's a lot of thinking, a lot of thought behind this training group thing, and I'm looking forward to.
It's taken a long time. It's just taken a long time. We've had a lot of errors.
Which is great because you've done all the legwork for me.
I have, and I've got copious amounts of records. That you've seen from it, video going back for years of just when we were doing silly stuff. We were doing silly, stupid stuff, and I've got video of it, and stuff that doesn't work when somebody's punching you in the face.
Right.
But you bring up a good point about the jiu-jitsu, and Warren had asked me before about why I like jiu-jitsu for self-defense, and I think when people have the conversation, they have the wrong conversation. They start talking about, oh, what are you going to do, Umaplata him? Are you going to do this crazy gi choke, or you're going to pull, you're going to pull guard. They love to say, you're going to pull guard. It's like, no, that's not the right conversation. It's not the conversation to have. It's not about technique. It's about how much pressure we can safely put on you from the onset.
Yeah.
And what you learn in jiu-jitsu, besides individual ground fighting techniques, is how to deal under pressure.
Yeah.
How to not get overwhelmed, how to do a technique while you can't breathe and somebody's trying to, feels like this guy's going to break my neck off.
Right.
I'm afraid, I'm getting stacked and my spine feels like it's going to snap, and I know there's a way for me to do this specific technical move that I'm supposed to do, right. And under that pressure, I've got to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the absolute amazing things and one of the unique things about I'm going to use the term combat sport. Okay, even though I don't like the word combat in there because I'm, whatever. But, combat sports, boxing, full contact kickboxing, jiu-jitsu is, and, I've done a little bit of boxing. I worked with a great coach, Chip Hart, and that was an awesome experience, but it's like, again, it's like our little adage thing, which is like, that's a cool move. Now try it when someone's punching you in the face.
Yeah.
Do the move.
Do the move.
Do the move. Do the move. Live your truth. And like when you're getting punched in the face and that person wants to continue punching you in the face, you can, again, it's that you can either make excuses, you can quit, or you can get stronger.
Right.
You know, you can be anti-fragile.
That's right.
Pa-bam. You know what I'm saying?
There you
Plug
go.
that. So
Catchphrase.
Catchphrase. No, it's really good. It's really good stuff. And I like the thought behind that. And the other thing that we learned through combat sports is, and it's like, I'm sure you've been in an ECQC or a jiu-jitsu class, and somebody comes in kind of off the street. They have no real prior background. Maybe they have a martial art background, but they've never done any groundwork. And you just know
They've had street fights.
They've had street fights or whatever, and you can tell because they're like, they're on the ground, and what happens every time? They gas out, and then they get taken, and it's like that.
They do something stupid,
or they do something stupid, or they start going like that, and the guy gets the arm bar, or the choke, or whatever, what have you. But I would call it martial breathing, being able to go and relax and get oxygenated blood back into your body, make a conscious decision to do something, and then do it.
So I was talking to I had Cecil Birch up in Pittsburgh.
Another fantastic trainer,
fantastic instructor. I
and
had him
good
up
dude.
for his immediate action coursework in Pittsburgh, and he had mentioned having at one of the academies he had trained at or something that they had signs on the ceiling that you could see, like when you're on bottom, you could see them on the ceiling that said "Breathe, move your hips."
That's awesome.
You just reminded me of that, and I always think about that. It's fantastic. Breathe, move your hips.
If you're freaking out, very often no good's going to come from it. Because you're just gassing yourself, and it's interesting.
So to get back to jiu-jitsu for self-defense, right? I mean, so we're talking about being under intense amounts of pressure. And having to do something technical and make decisions and be thoughtful. And then we talk about what we see a lot, whether you're watching news stories of shootings that maybe didn't have to happen, or whether you're talking about when we see it over and over and over again in force-on-force training, people get overwhelmed and they make mistakes. And they react on instinct, not necessarily with forethought. They don't know what's going on, and it's so much pressure, and this and that's happening, and they shoot them.
Yeah.
And you say, why did you shoot him?
Right. Why did you shoot him in the face with that
Why did
gun?
you shoot that guy who came through the door holding a badge up?
Right.
And they'll give you they'll make excuses.
Right.
I didn't believe he was a cop.
All right, well, I thought this was a class and he was supposed to kill me.
Yeah, he was going to trick me.
This is scenario-based training.
Yes.
There are scenarios that we're working with. Not everybody is a bad guy. That woman carrying the bag of groceries,
she was not a bad guy.
You just flag blasted her.
It was not a trick.
So, yes.
But people get overwhelmed and they make mistakes. What we learn through force-on-force training, through simunitions training, through role-playing, through jiu-jitsu, through being under pressure time and time again, and having to be technical and make decisions, is how to deal with pressure. How to deal with pressure and use our brains and make decisions.
Yeah.
To make decisions. Sometimes you make the wrong decision, but you're making decisions. You're not reacting out of fear or impulse or instinct, or you just want it to end.
Right. And that's the other thing. I mean, I've found now it's I guess sometimes I've been doing martial arts kind of on and off my whole entire life. Sometimes life gets in the way. You take a break for a year. Maybe you're injured or something like that. And I would just recently, when I went back to jiu-jitsu and training at Daniel Gracie's place, it was amazing, how unpolished and just wasn't moving right. And now, it came back pretty quickly. Now I'm feeling much more confident. But having the ability to do some kind of work on the ground without just your hips over here and suddenly you're on your back, and then this happens and suddenly you're like this. It's tremendous, and there's very few ways that we can do that. You've got wrestling, you've got jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
there's good combat sports. People always want to have this discussion about should I box? Should I do jiu-jitsu? Should I do judo? I think judo's great. Wrestling. Should I do wrestling? I think wrestling's great. I think boxing's great. I think all those things are great. But there has to be, whatever it is, there has to be a resisting opponent that has malevolent intent. He wants to win, and winning means hurting you. Okay, he's got to have freedom of action. It can't be scripted.
Right.
And there has to be that. There has to be that opponent. There has to be opposing force. You need those things. Whatever it is, you need those things so that there's decisions being made and there's real pressure and there's winning and losing involved. And this guy isn't the instructor that you just paid to make you feel good for the weekend.
Right.
He's going to give you the reaction that he's told you people are going to give you when you do whatever thing it is that you do. You know, I've had this discussion with people who are fans of like biomechanical cutting. You know, guys who teach things like
the defanging.
Yeah, you know, like he's going to swing with a right hand and I'm going to deploy my pocket knife, you know, and cut this tendon and then his arm's going to go dead.
Right.
You know? Ugh. You know, like that's just not that does not exist in that's not something in reality. I'm like, have you ever cut a steak?
What? Right.
Wearing a jean jacket with your pocket knife?
Right.
You know, like here's what I'll do. I'll go down to the store and I'm going to get a pork loin. Okay, I'll get a pork loin and I'm going to put a straw in the pork loin that's representative of this nerve that you think you're going to cut. I'm going to put it in a sleeve. I'm going to start beating you in the face with it. Well, you get your pocket knife out and cut it, and we're going to see how that works out for you, okay? Right. You know, guys, for some reason, they don't want to do that for some reason. They don't want to do that. What they're going to do is they're going to play act it out. They're going to do a little ballet. They're going to play act it out with the guy that they've paid them to make them feel good about themselves. And he's going to do this like he told them he was going to do, and they're going to do that like they knew they were going to do, and then he's going to pretend like that arm is dead.
Right. Well, you know, and the other thing is, and this is something that I really like, and another thing that Craig talks about, is there is this unequal initiative. You know, and that's the thing where I don't walk up to him and say, now we're going to fight. Mm-hmm. Are you ready? And the guy comes out and be like, in the blue corner, in the red corner.
Let me get my mouth guard.
Yeah, in the mouth guard. It's usually this kind of, you know, there's something that there's a dialogue. His mind starts going into this dialogue. We're having a conversation, and then bam! And then the next thing, that's when we begin to see some truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a game. It's something that's scripted, that's rote, that's.
And there's nothing. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the game. Okay, because this is where people get confused sometimes, I think, is that they'll take that argument that you just put out there and they'll morph it into saying that combat sports are not effective because there's not unequal initiative. And that's not true. So here's the thing. Once I survive that initial onslaught and we get back into it, now we have equal initiative. Okay? Once I've managed to hit you back, I've taken the lead. Okay, so again, Cecil in his immediate action coursework talks about the default position, like a default cover position, being like surviving an ambush, and that how it's possible to go into and back out of the ambush. You know, maybe I'm caught unaware going to my car. All I see is something fast coming towards my head. I cover. I survive that initial onslaught. I get into it with this guy. Now we're in a fight. You know, now we're in the middle of a boxing match all of a sudden out of nowhere while I was going to go get groceries.
You know, actually, let's talk about that real briefly,
okay.
and then we'll wrap up.
All right.
Motivating things. I kind of have, it's funny because like, I don't even like to talk about it because I don't want someone to think that this is the right thing to do. You've got like two different kinds of people. You got people that train because they want to be better, which is the ideal thing to train for, the ideal reason to train. I'm kind of falling to the I guess the glass half empty kind of thing, where it's like I'm fearful of, I guess, not being able to do what I need to do. It's weird. I don't know. Maybe this won't even make it in there. But like, I guess there's two different types. It's like I want to win.
Jeff?
There's how much time you got? Oh no, it's like there are people that want to win, and there's people that don't want to lose. You know, it's like a slight different paradigm shift. I would say that I probably fall into the don't want to lose category. I think that you, judging from like our talks in the past, fall into the I want to win category, which is a good thing. I mean, it's probably a happier place to be.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know
what
how
do you
to. I don't think I've thought of it in those terms. You know, I don't think I've thought of it in those terms. And it's not about winning or losing for me in the sense of like there's a win-lose. Like there's no tally of wins and losses in a training class. Like there's no win-loss record in the gym. You know, when I go to open mat or something like that, there's no win-loss record. I'm there for the experience. I don't think about it as winning and losing in some sort of event where there's a winner and a loser. I think about it as winning against my own fears or against my own weaknesses or lesser instincts. That part of me that wants to quit, that doesn't want to do the work, that's what I want to dominate. I want to come out triumphant against myself.
And that's a great way to do it.
Is that deep? Was that really deep?
That was cool, man. No, I think that it's I don't think that there's enough of those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of videos and stuff about how to get your reload faster.
Yeah.
But
I want to get my reload faster.
Shit, yeah. Sure. But then, it's like I don't see a lot of people talking about like what their motivating factors are.
Yeah.
My motivating factor, again, it's like that don't want to lose thing. Mm-hmm. If I was going to get real personal, is thinking about my nieces, and if I was, if I was, in charge of them, and let's say we're out somewhere, and somebody hurts me to get to them, and I'm unable to protect them.
Yeah.
So that's why I do what I do. That's why I carry guns and medical equipment, and I'm aware of my surroundings. I lock my doors, and I'm polite to people on the street. Because should that day ever come, we have this credo that I borrowed from Nick Hughes and Dennis Martin, which is I will do whatever it takes to win the fight. As long as and I'll skip you the whole middle part, got to come to a class for that. But as long as I have breath in my body and blood in my veins, I will win. I will do whatever it takes to win the fight. And that's what it boils down to. Because if you're in charge of another person, you've got a significant other, a loved one, and yourself, because you're the master of your own domain, then you have to win.
I think on some point, everybody has a different thought process about this. For me, being very honest about it, I think being armed and fighting back, you're already at like the 90th percentile. There's just too many, Claude Werner has done too much research into this. Too many cases of little old women with 22 revolvers who are willing to shoot somebody in the face, holding them until the cops come, or beating their attacker. Being armed and having the willingness to fight back is just the biggest part. I think for me, there's a part where this is what I really love doing. This is what I love. I enjoy it. I meet the best people. I keep getting better. I have a friend of mine, whose name I'll leave out of it, who works undercover, works plain clothes. He buys dope in cars for a living. And he comes over and we train, and I've got a training car. We're working in the training car, beating each other up in the training car. He is going to have to fight some 95-pound crackhead, with a rusty screwdriver in the back of a car.
And that's going to be a tough fight
over a dime bag.
Right.
Okay, that's going to happen.
Right.
I'm going to have to fight him. Okay, and I'm going to have to fight him. And it's predetermined.
Right.
But this is what I do. This is what I do. It's what I love. I really, really enjoy it. I enjoy the work. It makes me a better person.
Cool. Well, on that note, I think it's a great way to wrap. Any last thoughts? Or is that pretty much it? Okay.
I think that's it.
Well, for more information about Shawn, my pal, go to Anti-Fragile. Well, you get the whole.
.net. It's anti-fragile, not because anti-fragile was 2 words, but because the other domain name was already taken. It's anti-fragile.net.
Yes, and I'll put that.
And there's a whole list of the courses. I do. Most of the shooting courses are through Alias training.
Okay.
We bring in all the big names, all the big guys through Alias to the Pittsburgh area. Some out here by Philly to Palmyra and such. There's a lot of courses, a lot of, Craig, Paul Sharp, Cecil. I got William April coming up this year. I've got Frank Proctor. I've got Cal DeFore, all them guys.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for the interview. I look forward to taking the class today. And, stay involved in the conversation. And if we can be of any service to you, let us know. Right. I'm Jeff Lubin with Arm Dynamics, and this is Shawn Lupka with Anti-Fragile Training. Thank you for watching.
Here we go. Ready, break.
Okay, beautiful.
Get your monster.
Get my high on. Okay, make sure this is muted.
somebody calls me, I'm taking it.
All right.
Hold on, Jeff, I got a call.
Yeah, let's just. I like to watch myself. I'm really not that interested in you, just so you know. Just honest about it. Okay, so we're framed nicely. Okay.